Now today we're going to be talking about the 7 dimensions of creation. And this is a very big subject. It's very daunting, it's very interesting, fascinating, spiritual, uplifting. It's a little bit different from what we normally hear, what we normally talk about, what we normally listen to on the TV, radio, books, etc. You might have a little bit of resistance. Some of it might sound a bit strange. Some might sound really good, might really resonate with you. But I encourage you during my initial hour presentation, I'm going to present for about an hour, to write down any kind of questions you might have, any thoughts, and then we can go into some of those afterwards in the question and answers. Because it's a big subject, but the more we get out of it, it'll help us. It has the potential to really help all of us evolve, shall we say. Well, it's because of this wide variety of expectation that I want to kind of ease into the 7 dimensions of creation. Because I know when I used to think about different levels of dimension, you tend to think about what you can't see. For example, ghosts, the alternate universe, parallel universe. Seeing people who have passed away, for example, are they in a different dimension? So this is the kind of thing that I used to think about with dimensions. But that's more of a horizontal look. That's kind of looking at the details of what is all around us, on what we can see, what we can see in the universe. But the 7 dimensions of creation has got more to do with a vertical look. It's more to do with where we came from and where we're going to, rather than more details of where we are. Okay? You see the distinction? But because that expectation is there, I'm going to deal with some of the horizontal, I call it, aspects to kind of lay the groundwork for the 7 dimensions. To lay the groundwork, I want to play over a short video. It's about a 4-minute video, and it gives us lots of information about where we are, about our known universe, about the physical aspects of where we live. And this is produced by the American Museum of Natural History. It's about 4 minutes, and it shows what the scientists, what the materialistic mind scientists know about the universe. So that's the known universe according to scientists, what we can see and what we can detect. And if you notice, most of it's space. There's not a lot of matter there. If you remember that we went out and out and out and out and out, there wasn't very much matter compared to the amount of space. For example, the amount of matter in this solar system, if you look at the space of this solar system, all the way out, way past Pluto, and if you bring together all the mass that we know about and can see and can detect, and you put it together, if you relate the space to be like, say, 3 square blocks, where we are here, 3 square city blocks, right? All the mass would be in 1 grain of sand. The rest of it's space. If you go outside of the solar system, the ratio is more space. And if you go into the subatomic particles, atoms, electrons, there's several hundred times more space. And so we basically exist mainly in space. Not a lot of matter. Okay? Basically, everything that we see and interact with here on Earth, all over the universe, is 99.9999, and I could have written a lot more nines after that, space. But the big question is it empty space? We'll get into that. The scientists like to call the matter which we see, the physical matter which we can see, baryonic matter. And baryonic matter is made up of baryons, or baryons, yeah, baryons. And a baryon is an atom which is created using 3, or something which is formed out of 3 quarks. A quark is a subatomic thing even smaller than a proton and an electron and a neutron. Everything that's not made up of 3 quarks is non-baryonic energy and matter. Everything that we see, everything that we interact with, everything that we detect is baryonic matter. It's interesting to know that in the entire universe, only 4% of the matter is baryonic. The rest of it they call dark matter or dark energy. Now I say dark, and dark does not mean bad. It's not bad energy. It's not dark, bad energy. It means we can't see it. It means the scientists don't have the foggiest idea what it is. They know it exists because the galaxy would not spin and hold together as it does without something different. They don't know what that something is, but they call it dark matter. Okay. This is an amusing slide I found. It's the scientists, as bright as they are, they send up this Hubble spacecraft, and it spends quite a bit of its time looking for that missing matter. Where'd it go? It's a lot of matter out there, but they just don't know where it is, or what it is, or how to detect it. So that's why I had to have that slide in there. It's a conundrum for scientists. They don't know what this dark matter is. But the metaphysician knows a little bit more about the non-baryonic matter, shall we say. And this is a slide, you probably can't see it too well, but it depicts the aura of man. And you see there's quite a few bodies that the metaphysician knows about: the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, that scientists don't know about. Okay? And this is non-baryonic matter. It's still matter, it's still physical, but it's non-baryonic matter. We in our physical bodies, we can't touch it, right? It exists on what we call other realms. And I wanted to bring up other realms because this sometimes is confused by other dimensions. or a different dimension. All right? The other realm is, well, the best way to describe it is, everyone heard of, what's it called? Life after life, near-death experience? Yeah. And that's where you basically leave, like the slide is showing, the astral body, composed of the astral and the mental bodies, leaves the physical body. Like if you had a car accident and you almost died, and the doctors are frantically working to save your body, and you kind of float up, and you're fine. You've got no problem. You're feeling pretty good, you know? But you're floating above the body, and you're looking down, and you're seeing all these people frantically trying to revive you. And if it goes on for a little bit longer, very often, and there's millions of cases of this, it's extremely common. Very often that astral body, or the consciousness of the person encased in the astral body, will go through what's called, or what they call a tunnel. A dark tunnel, and they almost always see a light at the end of the tunnel. Brilliant, beautiful, inviting light. And depending on your religious leanings, you might interpret that light to be Jesus, or an angel, or Muhammad, or God, but it's something really, really good. It's warm, it's inviting. You want to go there. And so you're going towards this light. But you also tend to find all your relatives and friends who passed away, Uncle Albert or the grandfather Jones, and they're all saying, no, it's not your time. Go back, go back. And you don't want to go. You say, yeah. But right about that time, they succeed, and they get your body going again, woof, and you're back in your body. But you're a changed person because you've experienced the other realms. You've experienced that there's something beyond the physical. You've experienced the reality of spirituality. And your life has changed. Happens over and over and over again. Your life is definitely changed dramatically from that point on. Now the question is, where is Uncle Albert? Are they just hanging out at the end of the tunnel waiting for you to die? What are they doing there? Where are they? Some alternative universe? And they're in what we call the other realms. It's a different vibration. Okay, it's not a different dimension, it's a different vibration. And you can think of it like light. Right, we can see the frequencies of this light. We can see the frequencies of the sunlight. But as you know, ultraviolet light, beyond a certain frequency, you can't see. And infrared light, beyond a certain frequency, you can't see. It's still light. It's just a different frequency, which our eyes are not attuned to. It's still part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's still light. And likewise, the matter which encases our other bodies is still matter, but it's vibrating at a different rate. All right? Our physical sensors can't detect it. Scientific sensors can't detect it. But you know it's there. Because when these people pass away, or when these people almost pass away, they see them. They feel it. Mediums have so attuned their sensitivities that they can sometimes communicate with these other beings. Ghosts are people who have passed away, obviously. They've left their bodies in their astral or their auric body, but rather than go to the other realm, they're held back by some emotional trauma, perhaps. A haunted house, maybe you were murdered, and so you're attached emotionally to that house. Or a battlefield, say the Gettysburg or Scotland, etc. Lots of battlefields where people passed away pretty traumatically, and they're held emotionally to that place. But the astral realms, people exist there. They have their lives. Certain realms, they drive cars. Certain realms, they have houses, depending on the realm. There's several realms above and some realms below. And you go to where you vibrate to. If you're a good person, you go to one of the higher realms. If you're not a good person, you go to one of the lower realms. It's not a punishment per se. It's you go to the place where you vibrate to. Okay, so I want to make the point that it's not a dimension, though. It's another octave of manifestation. It's another frequency which we go to when we leave this physical body. Now we'll touch base where the scientists are in the dimension kind of view of the universe, as it were. And they have some problems. A little bit, they got some problems going on there. The general theory of relativity came up with by Einstein back in the early 1900s. Kind of takes Newtonian physics to another place. And it works. Because of his equations, scientists were able to predict black holes. They were able to predict light bending around suns, for example, which isn't possible in Newtonian physics. But it is explained by the equations in the general theory of relativity. Quantum theory is more to do with the subatomic particles, and it works as well. It explains atoms and the interaction with atoms. It explains radio waves and light being both a particle and a wave. And this has all been proven to be very beneficial, very useful. The problem with quantum theory is that it predisposes gravity doesn't exist. If you have gravity in the equations, it doesn't work. So you got to ignore gravity. It's a problem. It's a problem. But it works. It helps, so it works. But because you ignore gravity, the general theory of relativity virtually explains gravity. But the math doesn't work at all. There's a conflict, a very severe conflict between these two theories. And Einstein spent the last 30 years of his life trying to kind of come up with a theory that embraced them both. But he didn't do it. Couldn't make it. Now the new theory that they have is a string theory. And that's an interesting theory. The string theory is a very interesting theory. And it's very elegant. It's early days yet. I mean, although it started, I think, in the late 80s. Somewhere in the 80s, I believe, it was first invented. And they're still working on it. The most recent part of it is the M theory. That's the most advanced portion of the string theory, at least last I checked. And it can understand both quantum and the macrocosm and the microcosm. And the way it does it is beautifully elegant, really. They postulate that all matter and all energy is based on one string, one type of string. So one-dimensional string, which is hard to understand, one-dimensional string, but it's a one-dimensional string. And depending on how this one building block in the entire universe works, or how it manifests, is how it vibrates. Depending on how it vibrates, it can be a light particle, it can be gravitational energy, it can be a proton, it can be an electron, a quark, it can be any of these things that we know about in the universe. Presumably dark energy, presumably dark matter, depending on how it vibrates. Now, another interesting side effect of the crazily complicated math is that they have to postulate 10 or 11 dimensions. It's the only way that the math works. Now, that's obviously a problem because they don't know what these dimensions are, but the math says that it has to be there. Now, they also say that because it's the early days and they haven't really completely cracked the whole code yet, these numbers of dimensions may change. They don't know. So it's interesting. We'll get back to the string theory a little bit later in the talk. It's a nice theory. I like the theory. It's a good theory. Plus it works for my lecture too. So it helps. Now we get to we're starting to get to the main theory now, and this is the 7 dimensions of creation. Where did they come from? Where did this theory come from? It's not my theory. Where did it come from? And it came from beings from outside of our world. And it was given through a yoga master, the founder of the Aetherius Society, Dr. George King. And he was born in 1919, died in 1997. The important aspect is that he was a master of yoga. And this is important because information of this importance has to be right. If anyone has tried to communicate with their guides or tried to communicate with the other realms, and you try and get some information, it's extremely difficult to separate your thoughts with the thoughts of your guide or whoever you're trying to communicate with. Very, very difficult. And even some of the best mediums only get, say, 15, 20, 30% right. Most of it's them. So the advantage of communicating through a yoga master is that a yoga master has trained his mind. And Dr. King spent 10 hours a day, for 10 years, doing very intense, very evolved yoga practices. And you get to a point where you can look at a keyhole for like 6, 7 hours and have no other thoughts at all go through your mind. Completely transfixed on the fascinating life of a keyhole. I'd have a hard time doing that. But if you can do that, then you can focus on the information. He actually focused on a light beam. Focus on the information and get it 100% accurate. And if you're giving across new information for a world that desperately needs some new information, you want to get it right. So that's one of the reasons why they chose Dr. King. Now, he wasn't the only one that they chose, but he was known in his day as the primary terrestrial mental channel. He was the primary channel for the information at that time. Now, I spoke about advanced beings sending this information to us. And it's interesting to note that most of this information comes from planets in this solar system. Now, that's kind of a controversial concept, because I don't know about you, but when I've looked at the photographs of the complete mapping of Mars, there's not a lot happening there. Not a lot of civilization going on the planet Mars. Now, some would say, like Mike Barrow would say, that there's a lot that's been there before, but there's not a lot going on right now on Mars. But just like we have astral planes on Earth, you got to figure they got astral planes there too. And they, being more evolved, both spiritually and technologically, they choose to live on the higher vibrational realms. And so unless you are on a higher vibrational realm, like if you're on level 5 on this planet, you would be able to see them. But if you're on the physical plane like we are, you can't see them. Just like you can't see the other realms on this planet, unless you die and go back, everything. So the next question is, people will ask is, if you were an advanced spiritual being living next door on Mars, and you had all this technology at your disposal, all this knowledge at your disposal, and the people next door are just killing themselves. You've got tsunamis, you've got earthquakes, you've got mass starvation, they're killing each other with bombs and machine guns, they're just really hurting themselves. You'd want to help them. And so the natural question is, if there are spiritual beings on Mars and Venus, where are they? Why are they just ignoring us? How can they be so cold? And the thing is that because of the law of karma, they aren't allowed to help us. And karma is action and reaction, opposite and equal. It's a lesson. We didn't start on Earth and we're going to stay on Earth forever. Earth is a classroom. It's a stopping point where we learn experience and we move on. And these people killing each other, these earthquakes, these tsunamis, the mass starvation, all the messes that we have on Earth, those are our lessons. Those are the experiences that we need to go through. It's like if you have a son who's going through algebra. Who liked algebra? Anyone like, except for Oscar. Anyone else like algebra? No one likes algebra. Two guys like that. And everyone else doesn't like algebra. And then you have your son, he's tearing his hair out, doing his quadratic equations. Oh, you know, he's hammering his, oh, I hate this, I hate it. And you see him and you say, oh, you know, you may want to say, I'll do it for you. I'll take care. Don't you go and play ball, and I'll do your quadratic equations. And he'd be, great, thanks, Pop, that's really nice. Thanks a lot, bye. But what's he learning? He's not learning his algebra. Okay? He's got to go through the homework. He's got to do the lesson. And we don't tend to look at life as that. We look at life as being something that kind of stands in our way. If only we didn't have a lousy boss. If only we didn't have a broken down car. We could do so much. But these problems are our lessons. And because what we're going through on this world is our lesson, they can't just come down and say, oh, we'll solve that problem for you. Then we wouldn't learn. Now, they are able to help in some ways, and that's another lecture. But they are helping us. They're helping us as much as they possibly can. And one way, of course, is to give us knowledge. For example, we're told that all the holy works that we have on earth came from advanced beings from other worlds. The Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Buddhist scripts, the I Ching, Patanjali's aphorisms, all these came from extraterrestrials who came to Earth to help us by giving us the way, giving us knowledge. So they are helping. All right. Now, we finally get to the main event. So this information, the 7 dimensions of creation, was given to Dr. King on December 6th, 1957. And he was invited to a spacecraft, which was in orbit of Earth at the time, satellite number 3. And it had a cloaking device around it for a variety of reasons. One, of course, if it didn't, we would be scrambling our jets all the time to try and shoot it down. Also, don't forget that these advanced beings from other worlds who do come in spacecraft, do come in flying saucers, they can change their vibration. All right? They don't have to be on the higher realms. They can also come down to our realm, and they can go up to a higher realm at the snap of a finger. They can change their vibration like that. So if you've heard reports about UFOs blinking out, that's the UFO changing its dimension. I shouldn't say that, should I? Should have caught me. Should have pointed that out to me. Changing their vibration to a different realm, a different octave. Okay? So Dr. King was invited to satellite number 3 and did a few other things there. But one of the things that he did when he was there was he noticed these screens. They had these amazing screens on this satellite which show different parts of the Milky Way galaxy. And he said, wow, he was really drawn to them because they were so lifelike. And so he blurted out, wow, they look three-dimensional. It was like a perfect lead-in. They aren't. They're more than three-dimensional. They're seven-dimensional. And this is where the information was then given. And it was given for a very important reason, given for Dr. King to then bring it back and make it known to those who are ready for it on Earth. And so now we will read what they said. So this is it. Therefore, even basic matter exists within this framework. Will, mind, motion, time, length, breadth, and height. The divine will imposes those conditions upon mind which brings its potential into manifestation as directed motion in a time frame of length, breadth, and height. Huh? This is kind of the way I felt a couple of weeks ago when I was preparing for this lecture. And you read that and you say, oh, you know, it's a brain twister. It seems easy at first, but so we'll go through it a bit slower here. We got will, mind, motion. Those are the three that really are pretty new. Okay? The other four, time, length, breadth, and height, that's basically the space-time continuum. Space-time. Right? That's pretty standard these days. But it's the will, mind, motion. That's the key. And of those three, the one that's really imperative that you nail is mind. At least it was for me. That's the one that you really have to work at. If you can get your handle on mind, if you can really get your mind wrapped around mind, then it really gets clear. But this next sentence is very useful. The divine will, and that is the essence behind all things, the absolute, the supreme, imposes those conditions upon mind, okay, which brings its potential, it meaning the divine will's potential, okay, into manifestation as directed motion. Now, directed motion is evolution. Directed motion, evolution. In a time frame of length, breadth, and height. Okay, so you've got the absolute throws aspects of itself into manifestation, or takes potential and creates manifestation, right? That's the creation into manifestation, and it's moving the parts of itself through a time frame of length, breadth, and height. Now we got to get to mind. That's the tricky bit. Think of divine will as creation. Okay, that's the beginning. It's the Big Bang. It's the outbreathing. It's the beginning of all things. Okay, that's the creative aspect. That's the push. That's the start. And then mind. Think of mind as preservation. It's manifestation. I'll tell you what, I'll go back a couple of sentences, which I didn't put on the screen, to give us an idea of mind again. Manifestation could not exist without a power which is capable of creating the tension necessary to hold the particles of matter in a certain state. Okay, manifestation cannot exist without a certain power. And this power is mind. He says it in a different way. Now, mind by itself is an all-pervasive energy, which for the sake of simplicity, and we can really use some simplicity. That's a good thing. For the sake of simplicity, you could term as a pattern of potential. So mind is an energy field, which is a pattern of potential. A pattern which to all intents is static until pressures are applied from outside. So think of mind as a tremendous field, a sea a sea of energy holding the matter, length, breadth, height, the matter in a certain tension to hold it in existence. Because remember, most of the space out there is space. Even us, most of us, 99.99999% space. What's holding everything together is magnetism virtually. It's tension. We're holding the atoms together. Most of us, if you could crumble me down to just pure matter, it'd be like you wouldn't be able to see it. It'd be so small. So the mind is that power which holds this matter in the state of tension. Another way to look at it. Each of us is an aspect of the Absolute. We each have a spark of God within us. Right? This spark exists in a sea of mind. Right? And the mind is the power that creates the tension that holds the matter together. Okay, the mind holds the matter together through tension. And through the medium of mind, the whole universe is this medium of mind, this static potential in manifestation. And the divine will gives each spark within each of us and within everything motion or direction, evolution back to its source. It split itself up into multitudinous forms, and now it's all going back to the source through this directed motion, through evolution. At least have one nice picture in here with all this difficult stuff. This is a kind of representation of the robot which we have formed for ourselves. Again, there's a spark of God within us. It's formed out of matter, this body. And it's using mind to hold this body and also the other bodies, the astral body, the etheric body, the mental body, collectively known as the auric body. So it's holding all of those in the state of tension. And the body is actually even more advanced than that. You can think of it as a robot with an atom-splitting device inside of it. That's what the spine is. It's an atom-splitting cyclotron. And all your breathing exercises that you will eventually do, if you aren't doing them already, is trying to split this atom at the base of your spine, the kundalini. And if you split that, then you release tremendous power that will help you along your motion, your evolution, back to oneness. And on top of this cyclotron, you've got this radio set, which tunes into the different aspects of mind. Right now, we're tuning into mainly this physical baryonic aspects of mind. But if you raise your thoughts, raise your vibrations, you can start to tune into higher aspects of mind, other astral realms, other vibrations. And this higher thought will then also help you break that power at the base of the spine. So these two things are working together. You're trying to expand your mind and break this kundalini, open this kundalini, activate, shall we say, activate the kundalini at the base of the spine. This introduces a nice little quote. This is, of course, Einstein at the Griffith Observatory. If you've not been there, there's me pointing upwards, 7 dimensions, you know. And there's Mr. Worm. What's Mr. Worm doing there? I got this really nice quote. Another way of trying to understand mind. This was given by a different master from another world. This master came from Venus. His name was, or is, the Master Therius, his pseudonym. This was given July 2nd, 1955. A worm is a worm because it will not accept the fact that it is something greater. It is not possible to have matter, whether animate or inanimate, without having mind. That means this table has got mind. The mind creates tension which holds the atoms of matter together. He's restating the same thing. Whether those atoms constitute the brain of a saint, the brain of Einstein, or the cellular structure of a worm. And here's an interesting little quote that he throws out there. The journey from worm into man is a shorter journey, long as it is, than from man consciousness to God consciousness. That's an amazing statement. In other words, there's less difference between me and that worm than from me to a highly elevated master from another world. It makes you kind of reconsider worms. Right? They aren't that bad. They aren't that backwards. And they have mind. They have feeling. They think, as is a table, as is a blade of grass, as is a ceiling fan. Everything has mind, because the mind is everywhere. Now, another way to see it, keep looking at it in different ways. This is an interesting way. I like this one. This is from the Second Freedom, from the Nine Freedoms, given by a different master from another world. And I'm not going to read the quote from the master from Mars just yet. I'm going to read the commentary from our master, from Dr. King. In the beginning, there was only potential. Then, for some reason, known only to the Absolute itself, this original potential was brought into and bound within manifestation. We talked about that before. The forces used to bring this about could only be referred to as divine will, divine mind, motion. Those are the same three from before. But now, I believe he elegantly includes the last four in the word sound. Because what is sound? Sound is vibrating matter. And what is vibration? It's a frequency. Frequency is movement in time. So it presupposes time. So you have matter vibrating in time, which is sound. Okay? And it's interesting when you combine that with the string theory. Because the string theory, again, is everything that you see, all the energy and all the matter, is comprised of one type of thing. A one-dimensional, vibrating string. Interesting. Then he goes on. All that we can see, all that we can ever know about, was brought into being within this framework of pure divine law. The Absolute saw fit to 1, create original potential, 2, introduce those forces into this potential which were designed to bring it into manifestation. 7 dimensions of creation. Okay? So it introduces potential, and then it brings potential into manifestation as this framework, 7-dimensional framework. All right? But as we were told before, it's static. There's evolution implied, but it's static. And so you have to then do the next step. After taking these first 2 steps, the Absolute then took the 3rd step, which resulted in a preservation of manifestation. And then I'll go back to the quote itself. Love, L-O-V-E, is an all-permeating energy which is above mind. It is the third-degree manifestation of the initial creative force. So you've got the first creative force was the potential, creating the potential. The second was bringing that potential into manifestation in the seven-dimensional sequence or frequency or concept. Okay? That was the second. The third degree is energizing this system, breathing energy into this system of manifestation. And there is only one energy. There's not two energies, there's one energy. And the energy is L-O-V-E. It manifests differently. In this solar system, it manifests as the five major and the five minor pranas coming from the sun. With the great AUM, five pranas flowing from the sun. But it's a manifestation of L-O-V-E, the love energy. So that's another way of looking at it. Okay, so we've got the framework of existence, potential and manifestation within the seven dimensions of creation. Okay? We've got energy breathed into it, love, the love energy. It's way beyond our concept of love, obviously. And now you have to make sure that the system works. You've got to make sure that all these sparks of the divine are moving in the right direction back to its source. And the way that's accomplished is by the one law, which is an integral aspect of the Absolute, and that is the law of karma. Karma is pressure towards conformity. And conformity, of course, is oneness. Conformity's got kind of a bad name, you know, in our level of manifestation, but conformity is oneness. And karma is that pressure moving everything back to oneness. And the way it manifests on Earth is if you start going the wrong way, a selfish way, because we're all one. So if you think that you aren't all one, and you want to have stuff for yourself, and you want to steal things or accumulate wealth and not give it away, hurt people, etc., you're being selfish. And then this pressure of karma will get stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, pushing you, putting blockages in your way to turn you around. So you learn the lesson through experience that that's the wrong way. And wouldn't it be nice if we had tailwind? If you're going the right way, then karma is a tailwind pushing you along the correct path. If you're going the wrong way, it's this headwind. And the more you go away, the stiffer that headwind will be. And that's the great law of karma. Pressure towards conformity. I think that's about it. And this information is supposed to help me. How? Well, I think that, you know, if the more that we can think about the important things, the more that we can realize why we're on Earth, the classroom, we're moving back towards oneness, the more we can remind ourselves of these kinds of things and not think about, you know, spend endless time getting the right car, you know, or getting a second vacation home, or worrying about the boss, or, you know, there's so much that we spend our time worrying about in life. If we allow these kinds of truths to kind of sink in, it can be so helpful. Any good truth, Bhagavad Gita, any good truth, the more you think about it, the more it can help your life. Because again, the more you're going the right direction, the more you're going back towards oneness, if you want to think it that way, then the more your life will be pleasant. Because you'll have this tailwind. The more you'll be able to help others in their path. And we all want to help others. So I think that's really why it's helpful. Now what I'd like to do is to close this part of the presentation with an activation of prayer. An activation of love. Let's try and access this great power of love. So I'm going to go through the words. This is a prayer from the Master Jesus given back in 1958. The Master Jesus, of course, is also extraterrestrial, another world from Venus, Master Jesus. And Almighty Jehovah, Jehovah is a name for a Lord of creation. So it's an aspect of God. It's a spark of God, shall we say, with a lot more mind around it. Think of it that way. And so we're asking, let the wondrous power from your everlasting heart, because of course it's manifesting tremendous love. Any higher being manifests tremendous love. And we're asking that this power falls upon the heads of all those upon the earth now. So we're asking to help those around us. Let the wondrous love from your mighty heart fall upon the hearts of all those upon the earth now, so that they may all realize their divine heritage, so that everyone realizes that they have a spark of God within them, and the oneness with Thee. So the trick with prayer is to try and put as much love and feeling into the thought behind the word as you possibly can. Think about all the people around the world that need your love, or need the love of God through you, shall we say. And we're going to open ourselves up to this tremendous love in the solar system coming from the sun, and we're going to draw this energy into us, and we're going to send it out from our heart center, from the palms of the hands, and radiate this great love to those who need it. And it will go to those who need it. You can't stop it. It's the third degree creative force. It cannot be stopped. It will go. It will go there. So shall we do it? Have a look at our website. We talk about Operation Sunbeam, where we give energy to the Mother Earth. So many things. I can't even go into all the things that we do. But that's what we do in the Etheric Society, is we try and help the world as much as we possibly can, because the keynote is service. In whatever way you can, help others. That's the absolute keynote in these days, especially these days, is whatever way you can, help others. We'll end it with that, I think. Thank you all very much for coming. We're going to, rather than more details of where we are. Okay? You see the distinction? But because that expectation is there, I'm going to deal with some of the horizontal, I call it, aspects to kind of lay the groundwork for the 7 dimensions. To lay the groundwork, I want to play over a short video. It's about a 4-minute video, and it gives us lots of information about where we are, about our known universe, about the physical aspects of where we live. And this is produced by the American Museum of Natural History. It's about 4 minutes, and it shows what the scientists, what the materialistic minds scientists know about the universe. But the more we get out of it, it'll help us. It has the potential to really help all of us evolve, shall we say. Well, it's because of this wide variety of expectation that I want to kind of ease into the 7 dimensions of creation. Because I know when I used to think about different levels of dimension, you tend to think about what you can't see. For example, ghosts, the alternate universe, parallel universe, seeing people who passed away, for example. Are they in a different dimension? So this is the kind of thing that I used to think about with dimensions. But that's more of a horizontal look. That's kind of looking at the details of what is all around us, on what we can see, what we can see in the universe. But the 7 dimensions of creation has got more to do with a vertical look. It's more to do with where we came from and where we're Now today, we're going to be talking about the 7 dimensions of creation. And this is a very big subject. It's very daunting, it's very interesting, fascinating, spiritual, uplifting. It's a little bit different from what we normally hear, what we normally talk about, what we normally listen to on the TV, radio, books, etc. You might have a little bit of resistance. Some of it might sound a bit strange. Some might sound really good, might really resonate with you. But I encourage you during my initial hour presentation, I'm going to present for about an hour, to write down any kind of questions you might have, any thoughts, and then we can go into some of those afterwards in the question and answers. Because it's a big subject.